Joining us now, former Treasury official and Morning Joe economic analyst, Steve Rattner. Good to have you on board, Steve.
Steve, thanks so much. What do you have for us today?
I have some news about what's happening in early opening states like Georgia, which we've talked a lot about on this show. And what's interesting there is, notwithstanding the fact that the governor has opened the state, the rate of infections has not actually increased. And it's not actually increased for an interesting reason, which is that Georgians have decided that they're not all that interested in going out. They want to stay home and stay safe. And that has some economic implications that we'll talk about. But first, this chart that you're looking at here shows what's happened both to Georgia and the country in terms of time spent away from home since the beginning of the year. And you can see that from a baseline of 0, the amount of time that both Georgians and Americans across the country have spent away from home dropped precipitously after the virus started, got down to almost 30% below normal, and both the U.S. and Georgia followed a similar pattern. Then Georgia starts to reopen on the 24th of April, and people are starting to trickle out a little bit. But here's the really important point on this chart. The patterns of Georgians and the patterns of Americans in terms of how much time they spent away from home didn't change all that much. Georgians are down about 16%. The U.S. is down about 18%. And so regardless of what the governor says, Georgians don't seem to want to go out until it's safe. Now, that has real implications economically and for their pocketbooks. Yeah. And you can
Steve, let me interrupt you for 1 second.
In the United States.
Hey, hold it. Steve, we got a delay. I'm sorry. Let me hold it 1 second. And then you move on to the next chart. What's so fascinating about that chart is it's showing Georgians are reacting in a way similar to how Floridians reacted at the beginning of this crisis, when Ron DeSantis was still being reckless as governor, when he was refusing to close the state, when we saw those pictures of spring breakers, when we saw all that other, and Ron DeSantis refused to move. The studies have shown that Floridians took it upon themselves to shelter in place, took it upon themselves to socially distance. They made the decision, even though by overwhelming number, they believed their governor was acting recklessly. The same thing now is happening on the other end of the first phase of this crisis in Georgia, where people aren't really listening to their governor. They're listening to their doctors. They're listening to the medical advisors, and they're doing what they think is best to protect themselves. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't hear. No, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Georgians have decided that until they feel it's safe to leave their homes and resume their lives, they're not going to. And you can see this in all kinds of data. If you look at this next chart, you'll see in terms of spending that, again, there was an enormous drop-off in spending across the country in early to mid-March when this really hit. It dropped as low as over 30% drop in spending from where it had been before the crisis. Coincidentally, the bottom or not, the bottom was exactly when the $1,200 stimulus check started to go out. And so Americans began to spend more money and Georgians began to spend more money, but again, at almost exactly the same rate. And so by mid-May, Georgians were spending about 15% less than they had been in at the beginning of the year. The U.S. has been spending about 16%. But the important point about this is that until the economy recovers, until Georgians start going out, it's very, very hard for the economy to recover. Until Americans start going out. I'm not telling you to go out when it's not safe. I'm simply saying that as people follow their public health instincts and their public health guidance, it has significant economic impact. And if you look at the last chart, you can see again what's happened to jobs in Georgia. So this tracks job openings in the U.S. versus job openings in Georgia. See the same pattern. You had a high level in the early part of the year. It drops off precipitously, and there has been really no increase in the number of job postings in Georgia or in the United States, down about 36%, again, because Georgians are staying home. And so what do we learn from this? What we learn from this is that to get the economy back, it's not simply a question of a governor saying, I'm going to reopen restaurants or this or that. To get the economy back, we have to solve the public health crisis in a way that people feel comfortable and safe leaving their homes. And this is the fundamental tension we're dealing with. We're facing a huge economic downturn, and we've got to find a way, if we want that to be reversed, to get Americans comfortable to resume their previous lives in some form or fashion.
Steve, what impact are you seeing of the government stimulus that's been poured in here? We throw these numbers around, but $3 trillion so far, and Democrats last Friday passed through $3 trillion more dollars. It won't make it out of the Senate, but massive amounts of government stimulus into the economy. Are you seeing any impact of that, or is that just helping some small business to sort of ride this out until the economy can fully reopen again?
I think it is. I think it's having a noticeable impact. You saw in my second chart that the bottom, coincidentally or not, of this of the downturn in spending was ended exactly when the stimulus checks first went out, and spending has now come partway back to where it was before. I think people do feel more comfortable having some money in their pockets. I think the liquidity that's been put into the economy has helped. It's helped businesses get credit. It's helped businesses rehire employees. It's absolutely helped. But I don't want to in any way suggest that that's some substitute for a more fundamental return to work, return to normal in order to get the economy back. All this is a bit like putting a little bit of antiseptic and a Band-Aid on a cut when you actually need stitches or you need more fundamental help. And as you know, the debate in Washington at the moment is, should there be a phase 4? Yes, of course there should be. The White House doesn't seem to completely understand that. But we have to continue to do more if we want this economy to fully recover.
Steve Rattner, thank you very much. We'll be talking to you again very soon. And
thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.